Hello everyone, coming to you with the first ever Classic Movie Monday for a while. And today I wanted to briefly discuss the film It's a Wonderful Life. Yes, I think a lot of people are aware of this film or have seen it at least once or are familiar with certain scenes, maybe certain quotes, certain characters. It seems like a lot of people associate themselves with this film. In particular, I guess more within the American culture at least, especially since it is such a well-beloved Christmas classic. I think the reason a lot of people like this kind of a film is that it sort of resembles certain elements that we've seen before, but sort of updating it in a way and giving it sort of a twist. I will be discussing briefly later on a Christmas Carol for my book review. I'm just going through the novella right now, and it's interesting how It's a Wonderful Life sort of captures kind of these similar elements of looking at what life was like with the person not actually being there but sort of being the observer again. You know how in It's a Wonderful Life, have you not seen it? It basically follows that similar formula to the Christmas Carol of sort of having the main character sort of go through a journey and learning something along the way. And It's a Wonderful Life seems to capture that similar element. The interesting thing, though, is that the journey doesn't happen until the way end of the film. It happens within the last, 20 minutes. It's like till the last 20 minutes you actually see the plot kind of show up. It's almost like it's a journey of somebody's life, and a lot of it's really done through sort of this exposition and giving you this backstory. But to give you a sense again of what It's a Wonderful Life is about, have you not seen it or at all, basically it is about this man named George Bailey, played by James Stewart, or as a lot of people usually call him, Jimmy Stewart, who has this life, and it's wonderful. He just kind of doesn't realize it at certain points in the film. He also has a wife, Mary Hatch, who's played by Donna Reed, and also a family and a job working for sort of a mortgage-based company. I think it's also a bank too, so it's both. And it basically, the entire film, the majority of the film actually doesn't take place during Christmas time. It's not until you see Christmas appear at the midway mark, I almost want to say, and again the plot doesn't really surface in until the last 20 minutes. Now, is this a bad thing? I don't think so. I think it actually makes the film rather unique in that we're getting this exposition of George Bailey's life. Like, we start from when he was a boy all the way up to the present, which is supposed to be when the angel intervenes. And what I mean by this angel is the angel's sort of the plot device, in that you'll discover that Jimmy Stewart's character, George Bailey, is somehow distraught with his life, and you'll see why if you watch the film. And this angel comes in and makes him sort of see the light, and actually tells him that he's worth value, and sort of proves it to him by showing him a life where he wouldn't exist. And you'll kind of see how this happens. But for the most part, the majority of the film is just kind of exposition onto George Bailey's life. Like, we start literally from when he was a child all the way up to when he got married and when he had kids, and it's not until sort of the mid end where we get this problem that comes up. and this is really when the plot kicks in. Now, what I will say that I think makes this film unique is, and kind of Christmas-like, and why I consider it to be a Christmas-type film, is it's very community-oriented, especially with the exposition of the story. You really do feel like this is a community who cares about each other. It doesn't feel like it's just George Bailey's story. It does feel like it's this group of people that surround George Bailey's kind of story. Because you'll see how they actually end up helping him out in the end, and you'll see how this community that George Bailey is a part of is so essential and a really an important element to the story, and the fact that your life is measured by the people that you impact, and that's really the main message of the film, and you'll see how the film really incorporates it. And I think having, though, the film mostly be exposition, because the majority of the film is just exposition, you're just getting a background of George's life. It's not really plot driven until the way end, which I found so interesting. I thought the angel would at least come in at the halfway point, and then we would go in on this journey from there. But the angel doesn't show up until like the last third of this movie. I almost want to say it's like probably the last 20 minutes and he's there, and it's really when George is at his lowest point. And it's just so interesting to have this kind of a film, because it's unique in that a lot of it is exposition, but it's good exposition because it gives you context as to when the plot finally comes in. You'll understand, oh, this is why this happened now, and oh, it just all ties together in with the exposition. So I think that's why this film is highly praised, is because of the fact that it's really well constructed. The acting is very good. The characters are fairly likable. I have to admit, George's character is a little bit of a hothead at times. But the thing is what I admire the film for doing is that it sort of explains as to why he is sort of a hothead, and you do see like why he has these kinds of internal struggles, and you see that kind of throughout his life. So even though he does have flaws, I don't think these flaws are. I think these flaws are justified, and they have some context and explain the character. His wife Mary is fairly likable. The kids are very cute and likable, even though they're sort of in the background. The people that are within this community are really likable. It's just an all-around, I think, likable film. It just has some very serious, dark moments at points, especially when things are going really sour for George. You really do feel like it does really feel uncomfortable at times, I think, for viewers. But at the same time, there is this kind of whimsy to it, in that there's this kind of ray of hope that sees everybody through. And it's all by everybody sort of working together and having this kind of community. And I think really the movie is based on this idea of community, and that one person within the community can make a difference, and not having that person there can balance everything out of order and change everything. And maybe make things worse off. And I think it's trying to hit on to the idea of, don't give up on life, and life is really important. It's the best gift you can have. And I think Christmas is sort of a holiday that sort of is supposed to reflect that. Be thankful for what you have, enjoy your life, even if there are struggles. It's important to be there for the ones you care about, and at the same time accept yourself in a way, regardless of the downs that you go through. So it is that kind of a film that really does capture that Christmas sort of spirit. So I guess that's why I would say it is a Christmas film, at least to me, even though practically the majority of this film doesn't take place during Christmas time. I guess the only things that I could really add on this film, or I guess what other people have said about it, there was at one point the Nostalgia Critic mentioned something, if you guys are watching from That Guy with Glasses, he mentioned something like, oh, I find Jimmy Stewart, like, his character, when he finds out his wife's like an old maid, he's like, oh, that's automatically sexist or whatever. And I'm thinking, no, I think he would have reacted the same way even if she ended up being married, I mean, he is freaked out. I mean, he doesn't exist. Obviously, a very important woman who came to his life, and realizing that she doesn't know that he exists, that's probably going to hit him hard. And he's probably going to be a little bit freaked out as to either way whether or not she's married. And for some reason he thinks that, for some reason, just because she wasn't married, they're somehow thinking that this whole world is so messed up. But the thing is, it's messed up throughout the entire movie. Like, you see Jimmy start freaking about everything that happens to him in the last third of this movie. Okay? It has nothing to do with being sexist. I mean, I just don't understand that simplistic logic. Like, what kind of a world is this? Well, hello, he's going through sort of a crisis here where his whole world is flipped upside down. Obviously, he's gonna freak out. So I don't think that that part of the film was intended to be sexist at all. And even in the film, before all of this happens, she says that she would have been an old maid had she not found Jimmy Stewart. So I don't know. It's just because she's this, it doesn't mean that it's horrible. He's just freaked out by the circumstances that he's in, because he doesn't exist. So yeah, I just didn't understand his logic when he thought automatically, oh no, they made her a lonely librarian. That somehow just because he's freaking out about that somehow means that he's sexist. And I don't know, I just thought that logic wasn't really well thought out, because the entire last third of this movie he's freaking out from everything else that's happened in his life. So it makes sense to me why he would have that kind of hysteric reaction. He doesn't have that hysteric reaction just with his wife. He has it with the guys at the bar, and when he goes out and has contact with the police, and and it is emphasized that George Bailey is a big part of this town. Everybody seems to know this guy, apparently. I don't know how small this town is, but apparently it's small enough to where even taxi driver, cop, everybody seems to know him. I guess it's because of the company, I guess the bank, so yeah. But still, I just did not understand that logic. And that was really the only criticism that I've really heard of this film, personally. I understand that some people might feel it's very dated, it's black and white, it's not that, I guess you could say, epic of a story. It's not really complex. It's very simple. It's straightforward. It's easy to follow. Although I think it would be a little bit harder for kids to understand it, especially when there's a lot of adults sort of talking, and it doesn't really focus on kid characters. I mean, I would say that kids can watch it and maybe understand a little bit of it, but I feel like this is more of a film for adults that is maybe a little bit more child friendly, I guess, because again, there's nothing really in the film that says this is not appropriate for children. But at the same time, there's nothing really geared towards children either. I find it funny because Sesame Street would sometimes, when they would have a Christmas special, like they would play It's a Wonderful Life in like the background. when I was watching Sesame Street, and I thought when I was little that was just so odd, because to me that it seemed more of an adult film, and now looking at it today I can say it is kind of more of an adult Christmas film in that sense, because I don't think there's anything in it that's really geared for kids all that much. But it is enjoyable. It is fun. It is heartfelt. It is kind of tragic at times. I really did see resemblances to the Christmas Carol, and I kept saying that must have been they must have had some inspiration from the Christmas Carol, because you do kind of see how when this event happens to George, you do realize kind of how, wow, it does really resemble the Christmas Carol in a way. But the funny thing is that everything, usually within the Christmas Carol, it's kind of the opposite, in that the main character Scrooge, everybody sort of wishes he wasn't around, which is kind of sad, but they kind of do. I've been reading the story now, and that's pretty much how it's spelled out. But everybody's pretty much miserable once George is gone. So it's almost the opposite in that respects. And I would say, although it might be a little bit more balanced maybe in It's a Wonderful Life, it still feels like the movie's just trying to emphasize that George is deep down a good person. And you do get behind, I think the audience can get behind that, and I think the audience can enjoy that aspect. It just kind of seems that it paints it in the exact opposite direction as A Christmas Carol does, where, you know, if all the events that have happened in Scrooge's life, and even in the present, you know, if he wasn't there, you know, or even though it's completely different in the context of the story, it seems like a lot of people wouldn't want Scrooge around, and that's kind of sad. But it's how it twists things so that Scrooge can become a better person. But in Jimmy Stewart's case, it's about realizing that he is really deep down a good person, even though he is a hothead, and you know, he's not all pitch perfect. He still deep down wants to do the right thing. And you do see that throughout the exposition, and I think It's a Wonderful Life is really focused in on character in a similar respect to the Christmas Carol. It does try to focus in on George. It tries to make George Bailey the main focus, and the people that surround his life. But yeah, I think it's definitely a recommendable Christmas film. It does have some of these similarities, but it does it in a unique way. And I think that's what makes it stand out as a classic in general. And even some people don't just associate this as a Christmas film, they associate it as a great classic film already without even the Christmas title in it, which I think is kind of cool, because even some of the lines are not really related to Christmas, like when he's talking to Mary about putting a lasso on the moon and pulling it down. Nothing to do with Christmas, you know. But overall, I think it's a good film. I think it's a nice film to watch around the holidays, because it sort of does end with that kind of Christmassy spirit. And it's just fairly enjoyable and likable. Is it perfect? I wouldn't say it's perfect. I mean, I understand why some people may not enjoy this film, because again, the fact that it's not so much reliant on plot, it's more on, again, 2/3 of this film are just exposition, just giving you a sense of who George Bailey is, who he knows, etc., etc. Really, that's it. That's all you're gonna get for 2/3, and then the last third is when you actually get the plot. So it's really a character-based study, not necessarily plot-driven. And the plot arrives like the way end, which really is the angel. The angel is the plot device in here. And I was just so shocked. I thought he would show up at some point, like within the middle of this film, but nope. He's like 2/3 in. He's there. So if you're not big on exposition and characters and that kind of a story, I guess you could say, then this may not be a film for you. But if you enjoy the idea of just exploring a character's life, and then later on the plot shows up, and then there's the conflict and sort of a resolution, then you will enjoy this film a lot. And I did like this film because it seems like we haven't had this kind of a film that does a lot of exposition. At least I haven't seen a lot of films that do a lot of exposition. They're just more like go straight to plot or go straight to character study. The end. But I think that's really all I can say about this film. Any questions, comments, concerns, more than happy to answer them. But I believe that's all I can say. And till next time, everybody.